Hi everyone and welcome to Curly and Yarny. Today I wish to welcome you aboard the part 2 of a weaving series in which I am weaving overshot scarves on my 4-shaft Loom. So buckle up and let's get started. So I've already made a first video about weaving overshot, so this is the part 1 of this series, and in this video I mostly focus on the technique of overshot. For today's video, we're going to focus on the weaving of the first scarf, so today's video is all about fun, no more techniques. We can just enjoy the process. And then in a few weeks, I will be releasing the third and final part of the series where I will be weaving the second scarf, so stay tuned for this. But before that the fun can actually really start, there's still a few specific information that I want to give you about this project. So first of all, the draft that I am following for this project is a draft that I found in this book, so Hand Dixon, the Handweaver's Pattern Directory. So I did the draft that can be found on page 105, that is called Small Honeysuckle, and for this specific scarf I'm doing the threading that can be found in the middle of the page. If you want to learn more about how to read this draft, I actually cover it all in the first video of this series. Now let's talk about the warp for this project. So as I mentioned in the other video, I warped a warp that would be long enough in order to be weaving 2 scarves. So the idea was to weave 2 scarves that would be at least 65 to 70 inches each on the loom. I also considered for fringes and also for waist yarn. The width of the project on the loom is 20 inches wide, so this is just a little bit less wide than the width of my loom because my loom is 22 inches wide. So now let's talk about the set for this particular project. So when weaving overshot, one of the recommendations would be to choose a set that would be suitable for tabby, considering the warp yarn that was chosen for the project. In my case, I have chosen to weave this project with a warp of 8-2 cotton. So 8-2 cotton can be woven in tabby from 15 ends per inch up to 20 and even 24 ends per inch if you want something to be super dense. Myself, for this project, I decided to go on the other side of the spectrum, so I'm actually doing a set of 15 ends per inch. The reason for this is that this scarf will actually be a spring/summer scarf, so something to wear in the evening or when there's a little bit of wind that makes the weather a little bit chilly outside. But it's not meant to be kept super warm, so I did want my project to be a bit more airy, and this is why I chose the set of 15 ends per inch. Also, I had a 15 DPI reed, so it just made a lot of sense for me to go with this one. So this means that my whole project has 300 ends plus floating selvages in order to make sure that my selvage will be beautiful. Alright, so let's talk about yarn for this project. So in the first video, I briefly talked about the weight of the yarn, but today I want to focus more on what those yarn actually are. So for the warp and the tabby weft, so remember those are the 2 same yarn, I'm using 8-2 cotton from Maurice Brassard in their natural color. So there's actually no color put to it, so that's why it's called natural. So it is as easy as this. And then for the pattern yarn, so this is the yarn that has a bigger weight, that has a color that is contrasting with the warp and the weft. I've actually decided to weave that again with cotton, but this time it will be 8-4 cotton. So I'm using 8-4 cotton from Hobbii yarn. So on Hobbie's website, you can find their rainbow collection, which has a huge selection of different 8-4 cotton colors. So when I placed my order, I actually ordered a bunch of those yarn without really knowing what I would do with them, but I thought the colors are so nice, I'm gonna get inspired someday. And that day was actually a few weeks ago when I started this overshot project. So I dropped one. Of all the yarns that I have ordered for them, I actually picked up those 5 colors in order to be weaving the scarf, the first one. So I have this deep jungle green that I also use in my Christmas table runner. I have this here, and I believe the name is Plum. I have navy, and I have 2 types of blue. I can't remember the name, but I will provide the names down below. I have written them down somewhere. The concept behind this scarf is actually to be incorporating all of those colors inside of the pattern in a random way. So what I'm doing, I'm actually doing stripes of each of those colors, but those stripes are pretty random, so I switch them whenever I feel like switching them. And the only thing I would actually really respect, is just for me to make it easier, is that I only switch colors once I'm done with one whole repeat of the pattern. So sometimes I would do one repeat with one color, sometimes 2 or 3, and so this way I find that it makes a very dynamic look to the scarf, as well as being very colorful. Overshot weaving can be really pragmatic because we have such a big thread link to follow, and so I wanted to have fun with the color side of this project. So this is why I decided that I will be a bit more spontaneous with the way that I will play with colors. So let's look at the repeat of the pattern together. So it's easy to see here because I've exactly did just one repeat. So this is the beginning, this is the end, and it forms kind of a circle when we look at it this way. If we look at it from larger, from a bit more further, we notice that the circle are also creating this beautiful shape here when two repeats form together. But when I weave, I find that this one is not that much straightforward as this one. This is really the one that I see the most. Time to measure where we're at. So I like to go in times of 4 inches at a time. So here I'm going to write +4. Sorry for my left hand, that's always in the way. Take it off, put it here. Time to fill that up. So far you've seen every possible color woven inside of the scarf. I'm wondering, do you have a favorite? If you do, please let me know in the comments down below. For now, I'm just gonna keep weaving. I should have about 15 inches left, so I should be able to finish that today. So let's go. so I'm now just done weaving with the collar. So I have woven about 68 inches on the loom. So I have reached the end of the scarf. Something I didn't tell you at the beginning of the project is that actually in order to start the project, I did 6 picks of plain weave with the Hobbii yarn. So I'm just going to do those 6 picks also at the end in order for both ends to be similar. And then that's it, we're gonna get this scarf of the loom. Alright, so now that's done. So I want to advance the warp long enough for me to be able to keep some fringes here before I cut it off the loom. So I'm just going to release the brake and let it advance. So my goal would be to have fringes that are about 6 inches long. So that is pretty good. It's really approximate, so I'm not crazy with the measure. I'm also going to give a little bit of a slack to the warp. So since I'll be cutting in there, there'll be like releasing tension, and I don't want the threads to actually go out of the reed or even worse out of the head holes. So I know that my 6 inches mark is about here. Let's cut. And before we can unroll this, I'm actually going to make knots here to fix the end too. This way I'll be avoiding the risk that everything unravels. Alright, so this is it. The scarf is finally done and it's fully done. So I have also wet finished it. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I feel that after the wet finishing process, this is really when the yarn showed how beautiful the pattern can be. So everything got a little bit denser, but it's still pretty drapery. I like how the colors work together. So even though I was pretty sure of myself while weaving this random pattern of stripes, I always had a little bit of doubt in my head that maybe it would look silly once the whole thing is off the loom. But luckily, I think that it still works very well together, and I really get the feel that this is a summer springy scarf. So now this leads me to talk to you about next video, so part 3 of this series, in which I will be weaving the second scarf. So I still got plenty of warp on my loom for that. For the second scarf, I decided that the outcome of the design would actually be decided through a vote. And this vote would actually be happening on my Ko-fi page. So Ko-fi is a website that allows creators and their supporters to connect together. And there's actually 2 ways to support me on Ko-fi. So it can be done through a one-time donation, but it can also be done through subscribing to my membership. Usually I provide a lot of behind-the-scenes content to my members, so people who have subscribed to my membership. Sometimes it's bloopers, sometimes it's early access to video, or even knowing before everyone else what's going to happen on the channel. But they also get the chance to vote sometimes for what's going to happen with my project. So this would be the case again today, but this time I'm going to open the vote not only for the Ko-fi members, but anybody who would support me through Ko-fi. So in the vote, there will be 2 options, and both options will have a few similarities. So first of all, for both options, I would be suggesting the same thread link. So this is a thread link that can again be found in Anne Dixon book, The Handweaver's Pattern Directory. This time it can be found on page 106, and it is the one in the middle of the page. The other similarities between the two options will be about the pattern width. For both cases, I want to be using this yarn. So this is mercerized cotton from the company Manevole, I think Prolana, from their Ocean collection. It's not a brand that I'm super acquainted with. It's actually yarns that were given to me, and I think that they are absolutely beautiful. They are shiny, but most importantly, they have this gradient effect to them, and I think that it would be very nice to see how the colors change while weaving overshot. So those specific yarns that I have go from blue to purple, and they also have some pink in them, so I think this would look very, very nice. So the aspect on which the two options would actually differ would be about the tabby yarn. So for option 1, my suggestion would be to be using 8-2 cotton in the natural color. So basically the same yarn I use in this first scarf, and also the same yarn that can be found inside of the warp. For the second option, I decided it'd be fun to spice things up a little and use a tabby yarn that would be a different color, namely this color here, which is Plum. This yarn is also from Maurice Brassard, and it's also 8-2 cotton. I find that this Plum is pretty different than the one here, but most importantly, this Plum is a bit similar than the purple that we can find inside of the yarn, but it's also different from the blue and the pink. So I believe that this is going to give a bit more depth on the pattern. So we have basically two options. Option 1, which is business as usual, and second option, which is spice up your life. I have woven 2 small samples of both options just to give you an idea, because sometimes it's hard to figure how those would actually look. So please know that I would only consider the votes that are made on Ko-fi, and thank you in advance if you wish to support me in that way. This really makes a difference for me and my channel. Also, please note that the vote will be available on Ko-fi for the next few weeks, and I'm going to close the vote on September 1st, 2023. So on that note, I wish to finish this video. So thank you all for being here again with me today, and talk to you very soon. Bye bye.